This is a very timely symposium on economic thought. And I'd like to thank Sema Yılmaz Genç for organizing this together with her team and also institutional partners. And what I would like to say in my talk for the next 10-15 minutes is we are going through critical new times. And this new period ahead of us requires new thinking on politics, new thinking on economic models, new thinking on geopolitical reconfiguration, technology, education, trade, investment, agriculture, you name it. So we cannot continue acting as if everything is business as usual. Especially COVID-19 and its implications on our lives, individual lives, but also lives of corporations, military, businesses, and countries, force us to reconsider what we are doing and what we should be doing, what is important in our life and what is not. I don't think we have done this yet. Still, we are going through this period. So old cliches will not work. We need novel approaches, novel solutions, and novel mindsets. The academic traditions and narrative on how to write a new script will not be sufficient. So practitioners, academicians, think tanks, business groups, the strategic brains, all of us will have to sit down and see where we are going to lead. And in today's world, one thing is clear. Despite all these problems accumulated, there is no credible, efficient, and believable, sustainable leadership around. Because you might have the best vision, the best blueprints. However, if you don't have a team which unites people, stakeholders, if you don't have a leader who can mobilize all these resources, I think whatever we say, whatever we write, will be useless, will not be even worth the paper on which it's written. So in that regard, I want to say a couple of things. First, the capitalism, the way we know it, as a prolongation of globalization perhaps, has lost its validity. That's the reason why Davos Summit, most recently, were looking ways of reinventing capitalism with its social characteristics. More sustainable, more human-faced capitalism, rather than the wild capitalism that we have come through, and it's caused so much suffering among the 7.8 billion people around the world. So a new economic model respecting nature, respecting the social stratas and need to cure their illnesses and wounds, but also putting human beings, us, onto the sharp focus, rather than humans being just a subject of this new economic model. Then geopolitically, I think all of you will agree that we are so diverse and we are so divided in this conflict-ridden world. In the past, most of the conflicts were because of the power sharing or competition, about the resources, especially energy resources, oil wars, you remember. Then also gaining territories. But the way we look at wars and conflict have changed. No longer we will have our armed forces, the tanks and F-16s and missiles. Yes, they are still important as part of conventional warfare, but in the face of asymmetrical challenges and risks, also new instruments of war like drones, which can change the direction of any conflict, as it happened during the Azerbaijani-Armenian conflict over Nagorno-Karabakh. It changed the fateful conclusion of the war. Or Iranian and Saudi tension, we saw that the Iranian provided or supported drones, wiped out almost half of Saudi oil production, which came back later on, but it showed that. Then asymmetrical risks. So warfare is not waged by military forces again, as in the past, but now we see trade wars, technology warfare on artificial intelligence, or energy warfare, now not about oil and gas, but more and more about renewables, more and more about the rare earth, which is critical element. So change totally the face of geopolitics in this regard. Then you have also currency warfare. You have the warfare about your ethical values, whose values will dominate the world. Then also whether it's going to be US dollar, euro, renminbi, ruble, what? What is going to fuel the world economy as international currency? So, but the fragility of all this we had in the past have been over and over demonstrated in the current crisis we are going through. Because there's a call for a new world order. Yes, we've been talking about this for ages. There have been so many attempts for a new blueprint for the world. Most recently, after the end of the Cold War, when Soviet Union collapsed, there was a hope that we will have a new order. Didn't come. We are still going through a very chaotic world order. And this COVID-19 provided another excuse that we should be perhaps designing a new world on how to cope with this economic, social, and political imbalances, fragilities, and insecurities. I don't think it's going to happen that easily, because we thought that the Trump was very inward-oriented, a brutal force in the global system, retreating from globalization and more and more focusing on America is going to be great again, first America. With the arrival of Biden in the White House from January 2021, there are some hopes that his globalist and internationalist approach might perhaps bring a greater consensus on how the global order should be reshaped in the next decade or so. I'm not that hopeful because, yes, it's going to bring some change, no doubt, about relaxation of sanctions against Iran, perhaps not a new Cold War with China, but more nuanced, still protecting US interests. What will be the strategy vis-a-vis Russia, Iran, and Gulf nations, Turkey, whether the relations will go further down and worsen with Turkey under Biden and Erdogan, or there will be a resetting of relations. We will be reinventing ourselves as two truly acceptable and win-win partners on the global scene. And so these are still questions which we haven't answered yet. And I think more importantly, how we will be tackling global climate change issues. Now with Biden, he appointed, as you remember, as presidential envoy, John Kerry, the former Secretary of State in the US administration. And there's going to be a turnaround regarding the US position in climate change. Then European Green Deal, carbon neutrality by 2050, it might also bring some drastical changes on the way we run our economies, societies, and the countries. And so I think it's important that we continue thinking about the new ways of reorganizing our world and redesigning our minds and new generation so that we will be prepared against the natural calamities, the wars and climate change and social injustice, regional gaps in development and income. So there are so many issues. My last message here, of course, we shouldn't forget about the political liberties, freedoms, and human rights. These are also complementary part of this new world. Here in my own country, Turkey, where I'm speaking from, we also go through such a critical stage where we have failed over the past few years in addressing effectively our economic, political, and foreign and security policy challenges, and there is a need to reinvent ourselves, rewrite a story that will be acceptable, that can be also implemented effectively, and uniting the different segments of the society behind such a vision. Yes, there is need for that. And I think there is recognition, awareness of such a need in the country. The only thing is a push for that. Perhaps current leadership will change tack. They will recognize this need and have a totally different approach on how we will design and govern ourselves for the new challenges of the 21st century. Or they will fail and they will be wiped out from the political spectrum in the next election, so that we will have a new team, young, dynamic, and understanding the global trends so well, and also globalist, internationalist. It's not a bad word, being a globalist, especially for a country like Turkey, because we depend heavily on energy supply from the outside world, 98% in natural gas, 93% in oil. We depend heavily on financial flows for fueling our sustainable development goals. We depend heavily on new technology, breakthroughs. We don't generate it in the country. And we also need globalism for better education, quality education, and also responding to the aspirations of the young generations, the young population. But we will be better together at home, combining all the stakeholders together, standing behind this new thought, new narrative, new vision, but also engaging so constructively in a win-win fashion with our neighbors, with our region, and our other global powers. Turkey, as a country, from Saudi Arabia to Russia, from China to Germany, is a critical regional power to reckon with. And if we adapt ourselves to this